mean, you'd already been through so much. You're raising these kids, you're in this new marriage. Melinda's lovely, but she's really a friend of your wife. You don't have that much connection with her. It's just incredible that you would go this far for somebody who, I mean, she wasn't a stranger, but she was like your bestie either.
Well, I knew kind of like, having my kids lost a mom, and seeing kind of that impact and knowing that Melinda had kids the same age as ours, it's kind of unimaginable. And I don't think people appreciate, and I'm sure they do, but it's just like, you lose a mom, it's a huge, huge impact. And so, if there was nothing I could do to save my wife who passed away, but this was something I could do in addition, to help someone else keep a mom.
Welcome to Call Me Friend, powered by Miss Lou's Cabin, the podcast where, simply, we call my friends. The big news around here this week, the dates are out for my next college reunion, which brings up a couple questions. First of all, do you go? For some reason, I've gone to every single college reunion, which happens every 5 years, but only like one or two of my high school reunions, and I'm really not sure why that is. But the other question is, do you bring your spouse or partner? In this family, that has become kind of controversial, and the answer has changed over the years. Maybe I go to my college reunions because I just feel more connected to those people. I'm not really sure because I am still friends with people from high school. But when I think back to the college reunions and to the early ones, I think we were really competitive, 5, 10, 15 years out. It's, where's your career? I was in a little town at a little TV station doing TV news. Are you married? No, I wasn't. Do you have kids? No, I didn't. You're really comparing yourself to each other. But as the years go on and things happen to all of us, I think we get softer and mellower and humbler. And speaking of being humbled, I've got a story for you today from two friends that I went to college with. The connection that they have, the challenges that they've been through, and the things they have done for each other, well, I think your mind is going to be blown. And with that, I think it's time to call my friend Melinda. Well, hi there, friend.
Hi, Daryn. So nice to see you.
Thank you for letting me call.
Oh, anytime. Always happy to hear from you.
I think the first thing I want to know is, are you going to the reunion?
Yes, I am going to the reunion. Are you?
Right now I am planning on going to the reunion. Trent's trying to pull me to go on one of his Miles adventures. And October's a prime month, but I'm like, once every 5 years we get to go to Stanford and this reunion, and I want to be there.
Oh, good. Well, his trips are quite incredible for sure, but you're right. It's only every 5 years.
I was, getting nostalgic and thinking back of our college days. And I think even more incredible than getting into Stanford was the fact that we got into this freshman dorm of Branner. Did you know anything about this dorm?
Well, my mom lived in Branner when she was a freshman.
Ah, so you really did know.
But we didn't really talk about it until I got into Branner. I just knew I wanted a co-ed dorm by room as opposed to by floor. And that was all you really put down. So just feel so lucky to have got into that dorm.
For me, I was feeling so fancy. I had put down that I wanted a 4-class dorm because I wanted to be able to meet people from all different years and grades and whatever. And a guy who went to my high school, who was a couple years ahead, checked in with me. And he said, I won't tell you what to do at school at all. But the one thing you have to do, you have to call that school back and ask for an all freshman dorm. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. So I did. And that's
really?
Yes. That's how I ended up in there. If I was going to explain it to friends outside of this universe, this really became our family, our connection, it's where you belong.
We were by far the largest all freshman dorm. And so we did have that family feel.
And then, just like everything else, everything can look perfect from the outside and not perfect from the inside. Everybody kind of goes through stuff.
Yep.
and has stuff going on. And it's always interesting to me all these years later to find out, oh, wait, like that person had that going on, and to just not have had that awareness as 18 and 19-year-olds.
Well, a lot of stuff happens after that age too.
So a big thing that happened to you that I wasn't aware of until kind of after everything was you had this very challenging illness.
A couple years after college, I developed high blood pressure. And so I thought it was because of my type A personality. And so I did do a blood pressure test, and yes, they determined I had high blood pressure, but then I got a UTI. And during the UTI, they went in and did an ultrasound, and they saw a cyst on my kidney. And that's kind of when it all started. So then we started monitoring that. And there are times where a single cyst on a kidney will not grow, will not multiply. But for me, it did. And so the disease I have, which is genetic, is polycystic kidney disease. So, yeah.
And did we know of a history in your family of having that? So it was like a big surprise where, oh, I got the gene.
Well, I knew that my uncle had it because he had a transplant, in 1999. But my mom didn't know that she had it until after I was diagnosed. And then we came to find out that my grandmother on my mom's side was one of 7 kids, and 5 of the 7 had it.
Do they say, well, this is only headed one direction, you will eventually need a transplant? Or they say, we'll have to see how it goes?
We'll have to see how it goes, because as I mentioned, it cannot develop into anything serious. And then I guess I was in my early 40s when the cyst became so large and encompassing that they start to impact the function of the kidney at that point. And so that's when I was told that I should get on a list, for a kidney transplant. But they always say that a live donor or a live donor transplant is more successful, can last longer than a cadaver kidney transplant. So I wrote a letter to people that I knew and was still in touch with. It was the hardest letter I ever had to write. Some people knew I was sick, some people didn't. And so that was kind of the beginning of trying to find a match.
So is it because this was running through your family that people you were genetically related to probably were not going to be a match, or did you already rule that out?
Yes. Well, my father at the time, he would have given to me, but, he was older. And so they look for someone that is going to be more contemporary, with your age so that it can last, a long time. So, but you're right. Like my sister, she had a kidney transplant 9 years after I did from the same disease. So she was not an option, and I don't have any other siblings.
And so you write this letter. Do you remember? I mean, what do you say?
Well, I said, in not so, in terms that I needed a kidney, and I went through Stanford, and Stanford had a very divided process. And so I just said, if you are interested in learning more, here's who you can contact. And they had a special advocate for the potential donors. And then I had my own separate and distinct advocate that I was working through. And so I don't know how many people responded to the letter. But I do remember, one of my Stanford roommates, Kim, and her second husband, they opened the letter and called me. They were driving somewhere, and it just opened the letter, and they were kind of bantering back and forth as to who was going to be the best match for me. It was very, very sweet.
Yeah. So hold on. I think now that you've mentioned Kim, I think we should call her and bring her into the conversation.
I'd love to.
Okay, let's call Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Daryn. How are you?
Good. Thanks for letting, I guess it's me and Melinda. We're both calling.
Oh, good. Hi, Melinda.
Kim, I was thinking about our connection, and it's kind of like we're friends of friends.
Yeah.
Like, not that our paths didn't cross, but it's like it's so close, but like we never really crossed at school, I don't think.
Well, I know. I was trying to. I knew you from CNN Morning News because I was I'm still a morning news junkie, different network now. But I remember you, and I think were you and Melinda in the same freshman dorm? I feel like the biggest crossover is knowing people through Melinda, which we'll get to later. But Melinda knows everybody.
Melinda's like the Kevin Bacon of our class.
Yes.
Like all roads lead through Melinda.
Yes. She has lots of tight and loose connections. She's a special person.
Yes, very good. But you guys, we were in this, not only we were in the same freshman dorm, but we were kind of around the corner from each other. We were just a few doors apart. But then you guys lived together what year?
Our junior year.
June.
And do you want to tell that story, Melinda? Because we didn't plan to live together. It was happenstance.
Well, in junior year, what I remember is that we were both going overseas to Florence. And so we drew kind of by ourselves, I believe, or we decided to draw together.
I think what happened was we drew in different groups, my recollection. And my group had a pretty good draw number, so good that some of us got singles and some of us didn't in the same complex. And I was one of the people who didn't get singles, but we were in a good complex. And I think your group didn't get a good draw number.
We did not draw together, but
it happens. It's one of those stories like just, even bad things lead good places. So we ended up as roommates as junior year, and then we ended up overseas together later that year.
There you go. And I would explain to other friends that don't understand the whole thing about how do you draw. It's not drawing like with a pencil, but at Stanford, I don't know how they do it now, but you literally would go and draw physically a number at the end of the school year. And that was the ranking of where you got to pick where you were going to live on campus. And if you got a bad number, well, then who even knows where you'd end up? Or if you got a good draw, then you got to go to a great place. It's literally total luck of the draw, and they call it the draw. Do they still do that? Does anybody know? Do they still do it that way?
I think they do, but now they've got 4 years guaranteed housing on campus.
Oh, okay. So you're going to end up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, so you guys were roommates. It got, had a great Stanford experience, go off in the world. And then, Kim, you have your own really interesting, tragic, bittersweet story. Tell me what happened with you after we graduated.
Yeah, no, I lived a very charmed life till I was like 38 years old. And my first husband, and we had 3 children at the time, ended up passing away in the late 30s. So it was a shocking time, difficult time, and couldn't have made it through it without family and friends, including Melinda. So that was a tough time, but
that was an illness or an accident?
He was sick for a short period of time, and then he passed away. So yeah. And
so here you were, this mom with these 3 little kids.
So I'm a mom with 3 little kids, and trying to figure out life as a single parent. At the time, we were living north of San Francisco, and I took the opportunity to look for housing there, the new house there, and then also elsewhere, and decided to make a move to a different county, still near San Francisco. And so we moved from one county to another, and moved with my 3 kids and got them all settled and into a school situation and all settled. And then a couple of years after that, decided to make an effort and get on the dating scene. And this was back in, just after Y2K. So this was in like 2003 or so.
This is before the apps and...
so it was early apps, because we ended up and Steve does a better job telling the story than I do.
Okay, well, let's get him.
So shall we bring Steve into the picture?
Yeah, let's get the guy.
Okay.
I'm in the picture.
You're in the
Yay.
picture.
And just like that.
And just like that. Hi, Steve. I don't think we've had a chance to meet.
Nice to meet you. I've seen you on TV. So
Well, thanks for joining our call. We really appreciate it. So Kim says you tell the story better of how you guys met.
Yeah. So my first wife had glioblastoma and was kind of fighting it for about 4 years. And so on our anniversary, we ended up going to the oncologist, and the oncologist said, like, hey, it is game over. And which was really a horrible news to get, obviously. And we had 2 little kids, and I had never told them about how sick mom was. And so they said, hey, ask hospice and they'll figure out some grief counseling solution. So I went to hospice and they said, no, we wait for the person to die. And I was like, that's horrible. And so until we really interact with children. So I went to the school and the school said the same thing. They just said, listen, we don't really have a resource. So I ended up going to work the next day and telling this story. And one of my employees said, hey, what you need to do is find a widow or widower in your neighborhood who has kids the same age and ask them, like who they had grief counseling. So I said, yeah, I'll just look for a lady with a black shawl at Safeway. And so I ended up...
Because we're both in our late 30s, early 40s at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's harder than you realize to find like-minded widows and widowers at that stage of life.
So I ended up going to a meeting, coming back, and the guy said, hey, I found your widow. And I said, really? And I go, what do you mean? And I said, they said, here. And he'd gone on Match.com, and there was a picture of this lady with these 3 kids. And I was just like, that's the dumbest idea in the world. Why would my wife's still alive. I don't want to date. He said, no, just this is not for romance. Take your questions, send them over to this lady, and then see if she'll answer them. And so I ended up sending with the headline in my Dear Brown, this is not for romance. And so I said, Dear Brown Eyes, if you answer these questions, I'll move something heavy in your garage or clean gutters. And so I got a multi-page indented response with very clear answers. That's Kim for you. So it was very helpful. And then after my wife passed away, we stay in email correspondence. And then she finally invited me to go meet with her. And so eventually we got married. So, and then when we got married, she gave me a book with the title, This Is Not for Romance. And it had all our email correspondence going back from that.
That is wonderful. So, Kim, when you moved, you would actually kind of move closer to Steve's neighborhood or in his neighborhood, or?
So we moved, into the county east of San Francisco, and we were, 3 cities away from each other, much closer, right? So I'm not sure. It would have been interesting if I had not moved. Would we have actually met? Probably not.
You wouldn't have fallen into the within 10-mile search criteria.
Oh, I wouldn't.
No?
So that's interesting. It was meant to be. He was a definite. So I was back to the dating. I was early dating app, earlymatch.com. I think now it's a whole new deal. It was before smartphones. No one was swiping or anything. And it wasn't nearly as complicated to set up a profile. But I decided to make an effort, and I put a picture of me and my 3 kids up front. So I got no nonsense. And but he was a true needle in the haystack once we got to know each other. Still are.
I get why you could, I guess technically you met on Match.com, but there has to be a huge asterisk with that because of everyone's situation or what was going on.
Right. And it was unusual. There was a way to check the fact that you were a widow. So that was interesting also, because we were unusual to be our age, both widowed and widow. And our children, we have 5 kids between us and within 4 years. So they really did mix ages. So it just was really unusual to find something like that.
So how old, asking for a friend here, how old were the kids when you guys got together?
So we married a year and a half after we met or so. Our kids were 7 to 11 years old. and now they are 28 to 32.
Okay. Similar thing here. I guess I wasn't saying a way I was a Steve, but I didn't come in with kids. But I married a man who was raising his daughter alone when his first wife had passed away.
Oh.
And similar age when we kind of all got together.
In retrospect, we were in a hurry a little bit because we'd heard that you either blend your families early, they were, grade school, our oldest was going into middle school, or you kind of wait till after they're raised. And so that, and he was sweet. Since I had already moved houses, he and his kids moved into our house, and we added 2 extra bedrooms. And that was very nice of them to move from one community to another, because that's a big transition for kids. So it was great.
Yeah, that's a lot with kids who have already lost a parent.
Right.
And,
change is hard.
And I realize it's 5 kids, 5 different stories, but overall, it has gone well. And
overall, they're good. They all went through the school system here and went off to college, and all are either in graduate school or employed. And you knock on wood, they're starting to partner up, and they're great kids. They had big setbacks, and they've all overcome in their own ways and are just their own people. So
awesome.
We're very proud of them.
All right. Well, you guys are your own episode. We'll have to come back and touch on all that. I love that story. So, but let's go back to the dating part. Is it about the time that you're dating, it has taken the pivot to romance, that you get this letter from Melinda? Tell me what it was like on that side to get that.
Yeah. So no, we had been married. We got married in 2004, and your letter came in, was it 2007, Melinda?
Or 2006, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So we had newly married, and I don't have the best sort of memory for key details in my past, but this is a day I do remember. So that meant it was an important one. So we were headed out to dinner somewhere, and we're running a little bit late, but for some reason I needed to check the mail and bring it in, which I did. And I went through it as I brought it in, and I saw this letter from Melinda, which I had known that Melinda was sort of in the process of sort of dealing with some health issues. But I don't think I knew that this was going to be potentially the end result. And I certainly didn't know this letter was coming. And so I pulled the letter and I took it with us as we were driving in the car. Steve was driving, and I was able to open the letter. And I opened this letter, and she really talked about what she was going through and the fact that she was going to be needing a kidney soon and was in the process of seeking donors. And just so to know Melinda, as I know you do, Daryn, who is one of the most unselfish, generous, giving people on this planet that I've ever met. The litmus test that we all use is Melinda knows everybody's birthday. And then once you get married, she knows your spouse's birthday, and she knows your anniversary. And then to top it all off, when you start having children, she gets to know their birthdays. And this is long before Facebook or the internet or texting made that an easy process to wish someone a happy birthday. She would have a card in the mail, and it would be at your house for all of these various occasions. And so that just sort of defines who Melinda is. So Melinda's just that kind of person, and was that person for me and for many other people in her life. And just to realize that at that moment, she was facing this need and was so vulnerable, was having to send a letter through snail mail, hoping that people would answer. I just thought, okay, first of all, she's going to have a lot of people wanting to give her a kidney, but I want to be one of them. And I somewhat naively just thought, I'm in good health. I've always been told, and I did have all the good markers for low blood pressure and all the things that you need to have. And I thought this will be easy, and I'd like to give it a shot. So that's where my part of the story. And I was telling Steve as we're driving about the situation, and you all had met and you knew who Melinda was, but you can tell what you were thinking at the same time. So
yeah, so Melinda's incredible. And so, I'm sure that any body part getting into her is an improvement in real estate from being in me. So, and it's location. So but I had spent a lot of time in ICU, or kind of spending time watching my wife in a precarious situation, especially having had 2 craniotomies. And so I hate sitting in a waiting room. I hate watching, just waiting. And I'm not a very patient person. And so I was just like, the last thing I want to do is have Kim go through something where I'm sitting in a waiting room. So I said, well, I'll donate, because I thought it would be fun too. And it'd also prevent me from being in a waiting room. So we got into kind of...
We ended up in a competition. So I don't know. I can't remember how we responded to you, Melinda, but it was like, I think we both want to donate. And there's a process you have to go through to see if you are even a match, right? So, and it turned out...
So you both went through the system? You both went
being a match. So the competition was a lengthy competition, right? And it was a question of whether Stanford would put both of us through the process or not. And so we were competitive. We had the competitive juices flowing. And at the end, I think we were both a match, but when they were forced to choose between one or the other to put us through the final parts of the process.
My kidney was smarter.
His kidney turned out to be, I had to clarify this. I was like, why is he getting chosen? His kidney was bigger. So I'm like, okay, fair game. And a bigger kidney gives it a better opportunity and more longevity. So I couldn't argue with that. And then certainly the results have shown that. So he won. And I had to bow out of the competition and turn him to the caregiver.
In the spirit of wanting the best for Melinda, you bowed out, Kim.
Well, I was forced to bow out, but I was like, if this, you hope that it's the right decision, and clearly it's served her well. It's now lasted, what, are we at 17 years? Or we will be this year? Yeah.
We will be in September, 17 years.
That's correct.
Crazy. I want to get to where we are now in a second, but Steve, back to you. And I mean, you'd already been through so much. You're raising these kids, you're in this new marriage. Melinda's lovely, but she's really a friend of your wife. You don't have that much connection with her. It's just incredible that you would go this far for somebody who, I mean, she wasn't a stranger, but she was like your bestie either.
Well, I knew kind of like, having my kids lost a mom, and seeing kind of that impact, and knowing that Melinda had kids the same age as ours, it's kind of unimaginable. And I don't think people appreciate, and I'm sure they do, but it's just like, you lose a mom, it's a huge, huge impact. And so, if there was nothing I could do to save my wife who passed away, but this was something I could do in addition, to help someone else keep a mom. And then secondly, I really did not like the idea of potentially losing another wife. And I know that there's low risk, but it was just, it seemed to be the way that gave me the least angst. Melinda and we were both in the same hospital room, and we were both waiting at the night to go in the next morning. And it was one of the most surreal experiences because you don't get closer than being in the same hospital room, kind of sleeping at night. And I remember Melinda, I think, was crying a little bit because I think it was just an emotional experience. And we just laid there. And I think that was one of the most meaningful experiences I ever had in my life. And so Melinda and I and Kelly and their kids, we now know all each other, and we've gone on vacations together. And she has a wonderful husband who's hilarious. And so I got to understand why I was so lucky to put a kidney into her, because she's an amazing person. She's a great mother and a wonderful friend to Kim, and now a wonderful friend to me. So it was the right thing to do.
You all have brought the meaning of blended family to a whole new level.
True.
Melinda, how did you hear that it's Steve? And the winner is Steve, and we have the match.
I did know that a bigger kidney was better because I had to have both of my kidneys removed. So once I had those kidneys removed, I was only going to have this one kidney. And so that's why bigger is better, and a male kidney is a bigger kidney. But then I remember, I think both Steve and Stanford contacted me in the beginning of 2008 and said, okay, we have a match. And that was just amazing. Yeah.
And then physically, how it immediately after, did you feel a difference, Melinda?
Before the transplant, after my kidneys were out, I was on dialysis. And so I couldn't pee. But once I had the transplant, it was just like riding a bike, being able to pee again. My husband said that he could tell when I came out of the operating room that the color had come back to my face, because that was how quickly the new kidney kicked in.
That's amazing. And Steve, have you ever felt any effects? I mean, you had to recover from a surgery, but can you tell?
I had some complications from the surgery that were kind of big at the beginning, but they ended up going away. And so, I'm back to great.
That's awesome. Melinda, what did they tell you? It could last, how long a kidney's supposed to last? What's a good outcome?
Well, I mean, it can be 25 years, but it can last longer than that. So I still get blood work done every 3 months to test the function of my kidney. And I've been very, very stable all these years. And, I go see my nephrologist every, 4 to 6 months. And so we're monitoring it really closely, but it has just works beautifully for me. So I'm really, really lucky.
That's amazing. And I guess one of the things I was thinking about when I was thinking about this call is, how do you say thank you for something like that?
You can.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. It's, my kidney did not make me as funny as Steve is. And I can't pee standing up, and I'm not as adventurous as Steve is, but it has given me so many memories that I might not have already had. So anyway, I don't know how to thank him. And I just hope he knows how much I appreciate and love him and his family for supporting him and then also supporting me.
Well, I'd honestly say it's been very beneficial to me, because really it gave me a better perspective of a whole new group of people who are just so in need, and but also it allowed me to be close with a wonderful person, and her husband is just such a great guy, and we've gone on vacations together, and I think being friends with Melinda is a precious thing. She may know a lot of people, know everyone's birthday, but to be a special friend of Melinda is a lifelong gift, and she is just so marvelous. So I feel like I got a wonderful friend out of a process, and she would have been a wonderful friend even without that, because that's how Melinda is. But it was just really a great experience.
I mean, really, where we are in our lives now, I think we're past the stuff stage. Anyway, is there any greater gift that any of us can give each other than friendship?
Absolutely. And I think Melinda, just from the moment she entered this earth, seemed to know how to make friends. She's special. So everything you did prior to needing this kidney sort of set you up for getting one, because you're that kind of person, Melinda. People enjoy being around you, and everyone's always rooting for you.
I think the reason that people want to give to Melinda and want to help her is because she helps and does stuff for everyone.
And I think that what's really going to touch people about, when I say your story, I just don't mean the kidney story, the whole story. Kim and Steve, and it's so bittersweet, right? And I appreciate that in my life. Like, I'm fully aware that if my daughter's first mom hadn't died, then I wouldn't be her mother today, because we got married and I adopted her. That's a heavy, big thing, right? And if your first two spouses hadn't passed, then you two wouldn't be together. And if you weren't together, then we wouldn't know Steve, and Steve wouldn't have, give the kidney. And it's all true, right? It's all true at the same time. There's some really, really hard things, and there's some really beautiful things that come out of the hardest things of all.
Right. I often wondered, after my first husband died, I had this sort of what they call post-traumatic growth, right? You go through this trauma and you grow because of it. I always wondered, well, why did it need to happen for me to grow? That's a big rhetorical question. I'm not sure there's an answer, but it definitely has ever since then made me a better person because I'm much more aware of people when they're going through hardship. I think I have a better way of showing up that I was naive about prior, and I apologize for all my behavior before I understood all this. And so, when Melinda, of all people in my life, had this such amazing need, like, I felt like I knew where to go. Like, I knew that we needed to do something. And I thought it would be me. It turned out to be Steve. I'm grateful that Steve was even willing to do it and that his kidney is bigger and has probably lasted longer than mine would have. And I don't know. I mean, that's the way the universe works, right? You sometimes go through hard things, but you learn what you need to learn and then hopefully lead a better life and impact more people because of it.
You don't waste the invitation to grow. You can't pick the thing, but you get to pick what you're going to do with it.
Right. Certain things you can control and certain things you can't.
Yeah.
The one thing.
Exactly. Okay. So big question, even bigger than kidneys. We have this reunion coming up, Kim, in October. First of all, are you going?
Of course I'm going. And Steve just asked yesterday, am I invited? I'm like, of course you're invited. And now all the guys and the spouses know each other, so they have a good time. And Melinda's playing a big role, as she should. She's like a category of one. She's the liaison between the committee that's trying to get people to come and do the programming and the committee that's trying to raise the money. And she can do both. So she's that liaison.
She's good for all that. So I have this syndicated column where I write about different things. The column that has been Googled more than anything I've written in like 10 or 15 years is, do you bring your spouse to the class reunion? People, it's an issue. And in these times where there's big issues, apparently that is the big issue. So Steve, are you coming? Are you coming to the reunion?
Yeah, I am. So I'm excited to go and marrying Kim and putting a kidney in Melinda is the only way I could ever get into Stanford. So it's
that's your end. You do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Yeah,
tough crowd. I'll tell you. So I was single forever, and just so happened when I started dating Trent, a reunion was coming up. It never occurred to me to invite him. He was so offended he couldn't believe that I would go without him, and yet I did. So by the time the next one came around, we were then married. I said, okay, guess what? You're in, you come to the reunion. But he thought that a Stanford reunion was like most reunions. Like, you go to a dance and you drink a cup of punch and a cookie and it's over. He didn't realize it's this 4-day extravaganza that does not end. So after that, he was like, okay, you can go. He felt like he did it. But maybe I will bring him this time and I'll park in with Steve and Kelly and
we should.
We'll phone a friend for him.
Right.
Yep, for sure.
Yes. Very good. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for sharing the story. It's so big like the kidney and so personal. And I know it's going to touch a lot of people and it's just so special. So thank you for letting me call.
Well, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
It's great to be able to tell the story. Good to see you all.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You'll see you at the reunion, Steve.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Oh, wow. That was a big call. These are people I've known for decades since I went to college, and I did not know that whole story. I'm going to be thinking about that one for a long time. And now you know why I like to call my friends and why we have this podcast. And a reminder that this podcast isn't just about my friends. It's about your friends as well. And I want to know about them and hear about them and meet them, which is why I have a phone number that you can call and leave a message and let me know about the friend who has changed your life, who is special, the friend I need to meet. A big shout out and thank you to KimChi in California, who called that line to let me know about the friend who changed the direction of her life forever.
This is KimChi. I can honestly say that friendship has definitely changed my life. The first time was in college with John Browning. We met through his brother, ended up in Spanish, and 1 and 2 together, and basically spent 2 semesters laughing our way through our horrible verbs. So toward the end of our community college, John turned to me and said, "So what are you doing after this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I had no plan. I was living at home taking care of my ailing dad. No one has ever asked me that question before." So he said, "You should transfer your credits to Florida State." And so I did. That easy, right? And that's where I found storytelling, which completely changed my path. It led me to CNN, and that one question from a friend shifted everything.
So what about you? Who is the friend that I need to know about? That's why I have this phone number that you can call any time of day. The number is 912-766-0446. Call and leave a message. Talk about this friend. Let me know why they're so special, how they changed your life, why I need to meet them. I'd really appreciate it. Can't wait to hear from you. And meanwhile, just know there's lots of ways to reach me. There's the phone number. I'm on all the social media platforms. You can leave a message. You can DM me. Whatever you do, I appreciate it when you call me friend. Chat soon. You've been listening to Call Me Friend. Executive producers for the show are Daryn Kagan and me, Daryn Kagan. The show is produced by Produce Your Podcast and Journeyist Inc. Production by Abe Fowlett and Tammy Gagnon. This episode is powered by Miss Lou's Cabin, an Airbnb property on a remote section of the Georgia coast.
Before you go, Call Me Friend is more than a podcast, it's a community. So head over to callmefriendpodcast.com to join the conversation. Or you can call or send a text to 912-766-0446, and you can leave Daryn a message there, or maybe even share a story of your own. Because when life gets real, you don't have to go it alone. Call a friend. Call this friend.